If you use public transport a lot, or pay attention to the news, you may notice things aren't exactly normal right now. And I don't just mean another month-long closure for the Gold Coast Beenleigh lines, or whatever the next Shorncliffe line closure happens. I'm referring to the industrial action timetable, something that I'm sure leaves commuters with two questions. Why is this happening? And when will it actually go away? This video is to address this issue, and also to talk about basic news happening around the rail network. So to answer the first question, what is going on? Well, for starters, I think I should clear some pretty common misconceptions about the current issues. In no way, shape or form are drivers or guards involved with anything here. So if you ever see a comment saying, this is why we should automate public transport, unfortunately you're talking about the signallers and the maintenance crew. These aren't jobs easy to automate. And even if they were, it's not very appropriate to tell workers fighting for better conditions to suck it up or lose your job. The Fair Work Commission exists for this purpose, to provide protection for industrial action that is taken when one side is genuinely trying to come to a reasonable agreement, the other side is not. And while yes, I sympathise with commuters that are being disrupted, I commute as well. It has sucked to use the rail network since this has happened. And both someone studying town planning and as a transport advocate, this is terrible. But the workers are a key part of the transport network, they can't be ignored. But this story is far more complicated. While the official line is union protected industrial action, plastered on every announcement and every poster, the real reason why we've had a shortage of rolling stock, the real reason why services have been cut back, and why trains are so crowded that people are being left behind at stations, isn't from industrial action, it's from the reaction to the industrial action. And while I'm sure some of the work bans would have been disruptive and slowed things down, caused existing rolling stock issues to become worse, nothing can be worse than when Queensland Rail or the state government issue lockouts. Now I will state, we can't say with accuracy who's actually issuing these lockouts. Is it the orders of the state government? Is it Queensland Rail acting on their own? We likely won't know, but the choice to do this takes mildly disruptive work bans and turns it into no Queensland Rail rolling stock seeing any maintenance whatsoever. And yeah, this has been heavily disruptive to South East Queensland commuters. But to the regional network, the long distance, it has been even worse, with services cancelled and no replacement. Ironically, because of the NGR not being owned by Queensland Rail, we've actually been more shielded from this disruption than we otherwise would have been. Yes, for those of you that aren't aware, this is why I've been seeing NGRs on the Beenleigh line only running every half an hour, because we've stretched the 75 NGR fleet as thin as possible to serve all the lines. The only line that can't be served by them is the Ferny Grove line. So if the work bans turn into lockouts, the goal is to simply wait out the workers. Eventually, they'll need to start work again, and they'll drop their industrial action, as the lockouts effectively mean workers will not get paid. And in a cost of living crisis, everyone needs their paycheck. Now, I'll let you have your own opinion, but this does not seem like an action of a group that wants to engage with good faith with the workers. It seems they want to continue to ignore them and starve them out. This is further with the Transport Minister on camera saying it's not his role to negotiate with the workforce. With all this combined, you can see how we're in a situation. Negotiations stall, and it has left Brisbane with half the rail network. So now you're wondering, when will this end? Sadly, even if a new EBA was signed yesterday, it would still take some time for the maintenance of the fleet to return back to normal so full service can be restored. However, it is likely that as negotiations have improved, work bans have been dropped, or workers individually have stopped taking part in industrial action due to the impacts of the lockout. What this means is that on some level, maintenance has already been done and it has been continued behind the scenes. This can be seen with the ABC reporting of regional services returning to full capacity mid to late July. As for the Brisbane network, seeing the return of the Cannon Hill and Northgate services and return of Doomben services to Brisbane City in weekdays is a sign that the maintenance backlog is starting to be cleared, and potentially, after this track closure resolves, we may start to see full services return back to normal. Now maybe it's the track closure that's allowing more trains to be available, but really the track closure is only removing a Beenleigh train every 30 minutes. I'm not too sure how much of an impact that has on availability to allow Cannon Hill, Northgate and Doomben trains to go back to a mostly normal state. So the good news at least, we may be clear of this annoying chapter relatively soon. However, just because we clear this chapter doesn't mean we won't get into another one. While I mentioned that guards and drivers are not involved in this situation, that's because their enterprise agreement is due to expire next year. If lessons aren't learned, and good faith negotiation doesn't start sooner rather than later, we may be into another scenario like this next year, but instead this time it is the guards and drivers going on industrial action. The solution is simple. Call onto the government and Queensland Rail, negotiate in good faith, and to come to an agreement before the EVA expires. That is how you protect the commuters from more disruption. Although ultimately, given the decision to seemingly close vacant station staff positions and consolidate the remaining staff around the CBD, this is going to result in a less reliable network, with assisted boards causing more delays, as guards will be more likely to have to deploy ramps when required. But as the EVA for station staff seems to have been signed, this issue is likely not going to be addressed, at least for the time being. With that out of the way, let's look at the other form of disruption that's mostly been impacting the rail network if you live on the Beenleigh, the Gold Coast or Shorncliffe lines. For the Shorncliffe line, I think your future is a little bit more brighter. As it's been noticed, there's been a lot of closures for the Shorncliffe line that have been cancelled, and with ETCS now being installed on the Gold Coast line, this at least suggests that the ETS system is reaching maturity, and that the need to test on the Shorncliffe line will be diminished or removed completely. It'll be hard to know for sure when this will be achieved, however it will likely follow a testing of the system with passengers on board the train. This would fully certify the new system. I'm sure at some point soon we may hear an announcement about that, and once we do, rejoice, your days of disruptions are coming to an end. With a slight caveat, there is some more stuff that I'll come back to in a bit. However, for the Beenleigh and Gold Coast lines, your troubles are kinda just beginning, but in a different way. While I'm sure Beenleigh and Gold Coast passengers are very much being fed up with balloon closures, there is some good news there. The main obstacle is the Maruka and Clapham Yard area. This area is getting very close to completion, with the main works being on the Maruka flyover, which once the line reopens at the end of July, you'll be able to see hopefully a much more complete structure. What will then be left at a later date will be further integration works, connecting and establishing the new track layout, and then finishing the construction at the Maruka station. So as you travel through the city, you'll be able to visibly see how much more there is left to do, and how much more track closures there'll need to be. At the very least, you have what's left this year in September, October, and December. After that, the last few closures needed for crossover rail will actually be on the north side to finish off the main yard and Albion area, which, I'm sorry Shorncliffe, will be more closures for you as well, but then also train testing of the new tunnel, which will likely result in Tennyson line diversions for the Gold Coast line, which, considering how annoying Balloon is, will be a side relief in comparison. However, the Gold Coast line is not out of the hook completely. You have Logan Gold Coast Faster Rail as the project starting up. The good news is, at least, so far this project seems far less disruptive than the balloon closures, as we've seen with the Logan Lee area being completely redone and realigned in a 2-week span, while the balloon closure lasts much longer. So while yes, we can expect more closures for the Beenleigh line into the long term, as new stations get rebuilt, new elevated stations get built, as well as widening the tracks to 4 tracks as opposed to 2, it does at least seem that these closures will be less disruptive compared to what we've had in the past. However, this is just a complete guess, and even if it is less disruptive, stations themselves may still find themselves closed for at least a year. This is most likely to impact Woodridge, Kingston, Bethania, Eden's Landing, and Homeview. This is the result of these stations being upgraded in the same location that they are now, or like Bethania and Woodridge are being built as elevated stations, which may be more disruptive to the old station, compared to Beenleigh, Loganley and Trendon Park, which are being completely relocated. You'll have to see though, as for now the only stations confirmed to stay open the entire time are Loganley and Beenleigh. But in any case, I doubt it'll be as bad as Salisbury to Darton Park, as these stations were closed for around a year at a time, and for the most part, were upgraded in place. There's one other bit of news I've been able to find. There's been a small update to the new Albion train station, with TMR updating the procurement timeline from 2024 to 2026. This likely just means there was a delay in the procurement processes, and this is going to be awarded and tendered this year, which does signify a 2-year delay, which is disappointing, but at the very least, that's the new station upgrade can begin. Depending on how it's done, we can expect some more disruption to the north side. Fingers crossed everyone. For the rest of the network, which is mostly just the Cleveland, Ipswich and Springfield line that have been rather left untouched, you'll have to wait and see for the next update to the station upgrade program to see which stations may get closed next. Rumour has it that Bray Park and Northgate, both on the north side, are next to this program. That still leaves a few extra stations that could be added, which could be made up of many stations from the Ferny Grove, Cleveland or Ipswich line, with many all needing to be upgraded in time for the legal deadline of 2032. We'll see how that goes. Accessibility upgrades should be left to its own video, which will be made eventually. Anyway, I hope you did enjoy this video. This was kind of thrown together, something I wanted to make and now had the time to make it, being on uni break. It's a mix of opinion and a mix of things I've been able to research during this whole process. So, hopefully enjoy it. If everyone likes it, if something else happens again, I might make another one of these. Anyway, thanks for watching.